Hello, and welcome to a new edition of Education's Best Medicine, and thanks for watching. We are being hosted by the Eyes of the Conscious Soul. I want to thank Ms. Howard. She is busy streaming to another venue, and I want to wish her well. We'll see her next week. I wanted to say thank you everyone for tuning in and showing and being present. I just think it's so important. Um, a lot of things are going on, and I want to say good afternoon, everybody, and uh, just some things that are going through in terms of life and the things that we try to function on. Again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and again, want to thank Ms. Howard. Well deserved um, time. She's just completed some training. I'm really excited about it for her because it's just it lends itself to what she does in terms of community and community access and being an advocate for individual uh, issues in the community sphere as it relates to folks that help that need help in moving forward. And so when she comes on the show, I'm sure she's going to talk to you more about it. It's a pretty long exam, I understand, so I'm glad she did it. Um, well, new month coming up. Please check out our website, educationisbestmedicine.com. Also, take a look at blackdoctors.org. Dr. Michael Lenore and I are collaborating. And again, we want to keep things moving. Some things that caught my eye today, and we'll talk about them. It was a recent article by Miss Deidre McPhillips of CNN, and she coined the title, "Nearly half the deaths in the U.S. could be prevented by making lifestyle changes." Now, again, please go take a look at the article. I think it's great because that's what we've been talking about for a number of years now. That, I always say the behavioral changes are the toughest changes to make. And that's for me, for everyone concerned. Changing your behavior is hard. It's ingrained, it's reptilian. And that's where a lot of the addictions come because we are programmed in doing a certain thing, a certain time, all the time, every time, and wanting the same way. And that's just not the case. We have to start understanding change. So in this article, it says nearly 1 in 5 cancer cases among adults 30 and older in the U.S. in 29 could be attributed to smoking in a new survey. It says about 4% of new cancer cases in adults ages 30 and older in the United States, nearly half the deaths could be attributed to preventable risk factors, according to a new study. We've always talked about risk factors, the things that make us what we do, whether it be social determinants of food, clothing, and shelter, be where you live, be your relationships, be your access to capital, to income. These all shape your risk. And it's quite natural when folks have less access, have less fresh in foods or environment or a decent living wage, then by no means are they going to live longer. They're going to have shorter lives. Now, we can say the same thing about the people who make more money, and how we define more money than me, probably. But that's a lifestyle, so they can pay for. I've seen this. They can pay for someone to cook. They can pay for a trainer. They can pay to live in a great area that's free of smog and homelessness and all that kind of stuff. They can pay for all of that, or live in that and live longer, less stress, right? But this is about again showing to risk factors. It says these are things that people practically could change these are things that, which she states in the article, these are things that can practically change how they can live every single day to reduce the risk of cancer. This is just cancer, but this is heart disease. This is, you know, at 69, I have to worry about falls. I never have to think about falls. But even as an active and exercising core strength, I still run the risk of fractures from fall because I'm 69. Um, where age is dependent on your health, and I guess my thing about the age paradigm is that what I thought only would happen in folks my age is happening across the board, from childhood cancer to uh, uh, just the entire age range of folks, just in terms of cancer. So again, anything we can do to change that paradigm, we should. And I'm going to talk about a few more things, but this was really the thing I thought was really important because this is something that people can do. This is something you can change. So smoking was a leading risk factor by far. The study found contributing to 1 in 5 cases, nearly a third of cancer deaths. Other risk factors included excess body weight, alcohol consumption, physical activity, diet, infections such as a human papillomavirus, which is a venereal. It's a virus that happens after uh, usually young women and young men get infected, and it can affect the throat and the penis and the vaginal area. And so, uh, and the one thing about smoking, don't do it. If you look at any of the healthcare data as a risk factor, it doesn't tell you to continue smoking, it tells you to stop. Now, far be it beyond me to say that tobacco doesn't have its place in some places, but 99.9.5% of the time, you do your life and your risk better when you're not smoking. And what I bring it up, why? Of course, because we're seeing younger folks smoke. We're seeing younger women smoke. We're seeing the mixture of tobacco with marijuana called blunts, and then even mixing it with methamphetamine and cocaine, which is just, I tell you. But again, these are as a step-way drug. The step drugs in my mind in the communities I work with are tobacco and alcohol. Those are the step drugs that move people to other types of drugs or other situations, or they just get stuck in that particular drug. The alcohol is multifaceted. Yeah. So alcohol, drinking, bad food. So the three factors that contribute to risk to cancer are in just behavior. Smoking, alcohol, bad food equals obesity and high cholesterol and risk of diabetes, right? And heart disease, coronary artery disease. So it said overall, researchers analyzed 18 modifiable risk factors. Again, behavior. Behavioral changes are the toughest changes to make. But if you want to be a healthy person or assume to be healthy or have more longevity, and I don't always qualify longevity, I qualify it as quality of life. So to have a good quality of life while you're living, then you want to change some of these things. And it analyzed 18 modifiable risk factors uh, across 30 types of cancers. In 2019, these lifestyle factors was linked to 700,000 new cancer cases and more than 262,000 deaths. 7K, 700K, and almost 200K in terms of deaths. It's almost 1,000 people dying from a preventable cause. And I think of it as, really humane is the sister, the uncle, the aunt, the brother, the niece, the nephew. That's how I think of it. And the discussion is that cancer grows in some basic physiology, biochemistry. because of damage to the DNA. You know, so the DNA is basically the I call it the cellular matrix that functions to promote cell birth, life, death. So when you mess with that machinery, anything can happen. The corollary to that is if you understand the machinery, you can block a disease like HIV by changing how HIV multiplies in an individual cell. The same with flu, influenza, same with the vaccines. So cancer grows because the DNA is damaged, or it becomes or is a fuel source for the cancer. And other things such as genetics and environmental factors can also create these biological conditions. True. So where you live, how you live, all those things contribute to your risk of cancer. Stress, being a black man in America. So I think that we want to kind of start to understand that this starts in not only the behavioral aspect, but the environmental and genetic aspect. You know, we are our genes, you know. And so that's why you have to understand your family history, your family's medical history, because you are them. That's where you come from. So if they're more prone to cancer, they're more prone to accidents, they're more prone to addiction because of whatever, then you are too. You have the genes for it. Doesn't make you likely to do it or be it. You have the genes for it. And simple things like exposure to sunlight can damage DNA and lead to skin cancer, for example, while fat cells produce hormones that can feed certain cancers. That's why we think obesity is a real major issue in terms of cancer. Again, it's a usually, I think of it this way. Let's say you are engaged in a very unhealthy lifestyle, you're eating fast food, smoking, drinking, and so that's the fuel for the cells. And the body needs to have undiluted fuel for the cells, because what happens is if the fuel source is polluted or damaged or anything the body can't use, the body has to take what it can from that fuel source and then get rid of the rest. And the rest of that's a toxin that has to stay in the body. Where's it stored? Stored in the fat. What's one of the major issues? Obesity. I'm not just talking about regular overweight. I'm talking about exogenous obesity. So with cancer, you feel like you don't have any control, because you don't, because the cell is multiplying, or its DNA is being altered to an abnormal type of DNA as we speak. And again, with cancer, it seems like often you don't have any control. These are the folks I talk to and take care of. People think about bad luck or bad genetics, but people feel to feel a sense of control and agency. This is my body. This is what I put in this was I exposed to it. If I'm exposing bad things, I'm drinking bad water or not drinking water at all, in my case, right? If I'm doing those things, and again, it's a constant struggle to say, you have the ownership, well, I got to drink more water. I'm not drinking enough water. I've got to eat more vegetables. I'm not eating enough vegetables. I've got to avoid red meat. I've got to watch my fuel sources. I have to get rest. I have to kind of limit the pollution of media. Isn't that interesting? You have to limit the pollution of media in your brain now, because it's a toxin. Who would have thought that listening to the news would become a toxin? Well, when it's filled with lies and untruths, and and fantasies, and and degradation of other communities, that because you think you're better than them, then yeah, it's a toxic source. And it does make you feel like you have lost your sense of control and agency, but you have to do it and get it back. said there were 10 types of cancer where modifiable risk factors could attribute to at least 80% of new cases, including more than 90% of melanoma skin cancer linked to ultraviolet radiation, too much sun. And African Americans are eating too much sun. There's a large increase in African American skin cancer. Nearly all the cases of cervical cancer were linked to HPV infection, which could be prevented with a vaccine. Well, when I was growing up, there was no HPV vaccinations, and we were in sexual contact, and a lot of those women and men got penile cancer or cervical cancer or that kind of thing, or in a lot, throat cancer from sexual contact. And these are sexual transmitted diseases. Infections, again. Infections like chlamydia and gonorrhea versus HPV as a disease. Chronic. And one you can get rid of with an injection or shot, the other one you're kind of stuck with. Lung cancer had the largest number of attributable cases to a modified risk factor, more than 140,000 cases among men and women, and 97,000 among women. So almost 100,000, a little bit over 100,000 for men, and a little bit over 97,000 for women. The vast majority were linked to smoking. Which means that if you stop smoking, you lower your risk of getting a cancer. And if you have a cancer, it's probably better treated. It never failed, and I love my dad, that he wanted to smoke and had a lung cancer go to his brain, the size of a grapefruit almost. Took up half his skull. They tried to decompress it. It's very painful to see. And he was a strong trooper. He was cool with it. He knew he had nothing he could do. After smoking, excessive body weight was the second largest contributor to cancer cases, linked to 5% of the new cases in men and 11% of the cases in women. We are a society that is overweight, obese, and is contributing to our risk of cancer. We are a society that eats too much, sits too much. We eat too much red meat. We eat too much processed foods. We eat too much sugar. We eat too much salt. We eat too much fast food. And our bodies can no longer process that. I guess maybe 6 million years ago, if we were running away from the saber-toothed tiger, we could process that. But still, if it were junk, we couldn't do anything with it. Again, for 6 million years, the diet of the human was plant-based. They had a concept about eating meat. And water-based. No concept of alcohol. It's libation, but not something you drink every day. It was also associated with smoking. It was also associated with a third of the deaths from cancer of the endometrium, which is a cervical cancer, right? A woman's cancer, the gallbladder, or the esophagus, your throat, right? It's throat cancer. If your liver cancer, kidney cancer, the new study found. So the major cancers, if you stop smoking, you can rid yourself of or reduce the risk of lung cancer, endometrial cancer, gallbladder cancer, esophageal cancer, liver cancer, kidney cancer, just by stopping smoking. No medicine, just stopping smoking. It's too hard. America, my community it's too hard. They have to go through this to stop. Another recent study found that the risk for certain cancers was significantly reduced for people taking popular weight loss and diabetes medicines such as Ozempic and Wegovy. Average cost anywhere between 500 and 1,500 bucks a month. The insurance companies are still not covering them. You have to do a special request to get them covered. You have to be over a certain body mass index, and you have to stay over that body mass index or they stop the drug. Most people are paying out of pocket. So you see those little commercials come on about the GP1s and people inject themselves. Hey, all those folks are paying out of pocket. And they should have it done in a doctor's care. These are new drugs. They're seeing a lot of GI symptoms with them, gastrointestinal issues, again, pluses and the minuses. You got to weigh them, plus versus minus. Interesting thing about obesity, it's still not considered a chronic disease. That's why the insurance companies don't have to pay for it. If it were like hypertension, they'd have to pay for it. But because it's not considered a chronic disease, I don't know what that is, it is not covered. So obesity is emerging in some ways as just a potent of a risk factor for people that are smoking it. I think more so because more people are obese than they smoke. And if they're obese and smoking, that's a double. Dr. Marcus Pishka, Chief Medical Officer of the Association of State and Territory Health Officials, said he was not involved in the new study, but his prior experience working on cancer prevention, intervening on a set of core behavioral risk factors. Now, I kind of reviewed this article, but I didn't review it. Core behavioral risk factors. And what I guess my big point to this is behavior, is how we're thinking, stinking thinking, right? It's 11:22. I want to say you're listening to Believe Radio, 24-hour inspirational gospel music. I'm George Pearson. I'm a PA, physician assistant, primary care, work in internal medicine, family practice, behavioral health, addiction medicine, those kinds of things. That's where the behavioral aspect. There's no part of medicine where behavior isn't involved, unfortunately. Or fortunately, because that means just something you're in control of. You want to be controlled, be in control of your behavior. Stinking thinking. Intervening on a set of core behavioral risk factors, including smoking, eating well, exercising, whatever, can make a dramatic difference in outcomes of chronic diseases. And I think that's true for all of them, regardless whether it be cancer, effect on heart disease, diabetes. Look, when I first started practicing, if a person was diagnosed with hypertension or diabetes or whatever, they were immediately given medicines. Now, people are given a trial of total lifestyle changes. And if they can do total lifestyle changes, if they have to take medicine, it's a reduced amount. And they're on their way to a healthier lifestyle. But to just give the medicines now without a severe prescription for total lifestyle changes is paramount to failure, because you're going to have to come back to them anyway. So you might as well start off with them. And policymakers, she said, policymakers, great article about it, but policymakers and health officials to work to create environments where it's easy for people to be healthy, a choice, and making a very easy choice. And particularly important, people who are living in the historically, unserved, disadvantaged neighborhoods. That's people of color. As rates of early onset cancer rise, I've been talking about this. I'm seeing an increase in cancer in folks that I think, in ages that I think shouldn't get it. It's almost as dynamic as diabetes. When I first started practicing, my oldest diabetic was in their 30s. Now they're in their early 20s. Heart disease the same way, early 20s. In this case, 20 is the new 30, 40. As rates of early onset cancer rise, in the U.S. especially, it's important to create healthy habits early. Expert says it is harder to quit smoking once you start or lose weight once you gain it, of course. Uh, Again, this is Believe Radio, 24-hour inspirational gospel music station. I want to thank Curtis. I want to thank Adam Odging celebrating his birthday. He said he's going to celebrate it all month. We're almost done there, Adam. Just got a few more days left, buddy. Have a good time. I want to thank all the people that make my life possible. My son, Kenyatta Piston, thank you very much. Love you much. And I want to thank all the mothers. You know, if you have a mother, and she's alive, give her a big hug and kiss. And I want to say special thank you to my mom for being the woman that she was, deciding to have a child, which I think is a risky proposition now that I understand it. Again, it's never too late, as Dr. Pesca says, to turn to healthy behavior around and change around in life. It can make a profound difference, I think, just in terms of who you are, you know. And we're seeing that now. The positive thing, we're seeing, you know, more folks trying to exercise, more folks trying to eat better, more folks trying to understand that their genetics do not define their health outcomes. It's part of that. And making lifestyle changes to minimize exposures to certain factors. Again, cancer is something your body fights every single day. It's in this article, Kamal says, it's a risk that you face every day, and also means the reduction of risk can benefit you if you do them every day. I thought it was a great article. Now, to turn to another piece, I looked up the phrase "wars and rumors of wars," and what did that mean? What were they talking about? Well, it's from the Bible, specifically from the Olivet Discourse, where Jesus speaks about the signs of the ends of the times in Matthew 24-6. This phrase is often interpreted to mean that conflicts and the threat of conflicts will be prevalent as a sign of turbulent times. And this was a GPT chat, so I again flipped the script and asked him, what about the implications for 2024? And what it said is geopolitical tensions in 2024. The world is experiencing significant geopolitical tensions, including ongoing conflicts in Ukraine, the Middle East, rising concerns in regions like Korea, Peninsula, Taiwan, and in the Americas. And in America, these situations contribute to a sense of global stability. Does the idea of Donald Trump being president, does that scare people in the world? Of course it does. Unhinged. These situations contribute to a sense of global instability. That's why people feel just uneasy. Well, it's inflation. No, it's not inflation. You're more afraid of what's going on. And I want to tell those young black men that don't think they are supposed to vote, the young men in general, you should vote. Neither you vote for somebody I don't like, you should vote. But understand why you're making that choice. You're making that choice from a male patriarchal standpoint that says to dominate women. America is the only country that's not had a woman leader. Why is that? Over 300 years, there's not a woman good enough to have been a president. We have one now. We've had them. Ask Shirley Chisholm. We've got to get off this. And economic impact wars and the threat of wars can lead to economic uncertainty, which is what we're feeling now, affecting global markets, trade, and energy prices. This is the most powerful economy in the world, and people feel like they're more poor. Well, why is that? Because you can't have people talking about eating cats and wanting to lead your country. You can't have sexist, homophobic behavior toward people. You can't know yourself as a black Nazi. And they caught on a porn site that you said you weren't on. That's what's got it going. Immigration should not be what it is. Everyone's an immigrant except for Native Americans and African Americans brought here in 1619. Now, how could Columbus discover a land that people were already there? How could 20 Africans come to a country and, as Malcolm said, have Plymouth Rock land on them? But wars and rumors of wars, economic impact wars, and the threat of wars can lead to economic uncertainty, affecting global markets, trade, and energy prices. This can have a ripple effect in economies worldwide, influencing everything from inflation rates to job markets. Humanitarian crisis. The conflicts often result in humanitarian crises, results with large numbers of people displaced, increased refugee flows, significant human suffering. This places a strain on international countries, organizations and countries. And they can't get to provide aid because they're being shot at. Political polarization. The fear and uncertainty generated by wars and rumors of wars can lead to increased political polarization within countries as governments and populations react to perceived threats. The constant news of conflicts, psychological, constant news of conflicts and potential conflicts can lead to widespread anxiety, stress among global population. So, wars and rumors of war. That's the implication. And as it finally says, it serves as a reminder to remain vigilant and hopeful, focusing on peace and stability despite the challenges. Well, elections are coming soon. And I asked, what's the state of free and fair elections? And when I asked it in the Microsoft AI, it didn't answer the question. I wonder why. I asked it in the Open AI, and this is what we got. Elections coming, I said coming vote. Hey, I'm biased here. I think we should vote for Kamala Harris and her vice president, Waltz, for like, we need to turn the page. I love that thing. We need to turn the page. This is not 1619. This is not the Civil War. This is not Reconstruction. This is not civil rights. We need to turn the page. This is not go back. This is not a reactionary Supreme Court. This is not people's rights or states' rights. This is not the control of a woman's body. I bet if we had a law that told men they would have to use their genitals the way they were told, and they could only put it where they wanted to put it, and if they didn't, they would go to jail. I wonder what kind of law would that be? I wonder what kind of kickback would we get? I would say if we're gonna make a parallel law for a woman to control a woman's body, we need to make that parallel law for a man to control his. Let's see what we come up with. Think about that. If a woman has to have a child, then the man has to take care of that child. If a woman doesn't have a right to control how many children she has, then those children they have to be taken care of by the men that have them. And it happens automatically. Wonder what kind of response will we get then? The responses that we've heard is that women should keep their legs closed. I don't think that's appropriate. So that's what you mean by misogynistic, this, rape culture and, and dehumanization of women. That's what we're talking about. It's for men too, because if that's how you do things, then that's not really man. Nothing manly about that. I have 4 granddaughters. Nothing manly that I could tell them about that. So back to free and fair elections. So what is the state of free and fair elections? Has there been an increase in voter suppression? It is still one person, one vote. This is what they said. The state of free and fair election varies across different regions, which it shouldn't, right? And the question of voter suppression, the principle of one person, one vote, remains a point of debate, particularly in the U.S. In recent years, there has been concerns about voter suppression among various means, such as restricted voter ID, laws purging of voter rolls, limiting access to early voting or mail-in voting, and reducing the number of polling stations in certain areas. Advocates of these measures urge they are necessary to prevent voter fraud, and there's been no through all this. Where's the cases? Where are the cases of voter fraud? I don't care what you think might happen. Where are the cases? I think there's been one, and they got caught. And that was what's happening. While opponents claim they disproportionately affect minority, low-income, and younger voters from voting, which can undermine the fairness of elections. Wonder why is that? Is there enough white folks or who folks that claim they're white to vote? No, there isn't. That's what the concern about the numbers are. That the numbers continue to favor people of color in terms of the number one and the number of folks in the community. So you can't have it both ways. You can't control the vote, then control until women, they got to have a whole bunch of kids. Because they're going to be voters, right? Whether you want them to be or not. All this is about control of a woman. To me. Plain and simple, it's the control of a woman. And that's why these young men are being drawn to Trump. Because, and I was thinking about this, I have to talk about it, that the parallel young men and the parallel young women are on different tracks. We can see the young women working, going to college, getting degrees, making businesses, traveling, and we see the young men at home on videos, on porn sites, buying guns. And no standard. The young women are saying these guys are a waste of their time. So the reaction to it is that if you can't meet that person halfway and maybe make some steps in that direction, you want to control it. That's why you will not replace me is a statement, right? You will not replace me. Charlottesville, right? Trump got that mixed up, I tell you. And so, however, practices like gerrymandering, where district boundaries are manipulated to favor one party over another, can dilute the power of individual votes. This leads to argue that while formal principle still matters, in practice is being eroded. That's why so much control of the courts, right? You control the courts, you control what comes, what doesn't come, who listens, who doesn't listen, who gets a shake, who doesn't get a shake. Increased focus on election security and integrity, especially following concerns about foreign interference and domestic disinformation campaigns, have made the state of elections more complex and a contentious issue. Despite challenges, there is still a robust legal framework and public pressure in most democracies to ensure this remains free and fair. Got a couple more things to talk about before we're going to call this a show. vaccines, RSV, influenzas, and COVID. So I asked the question, says, what about vaccinations and why people aren't vaccinating and 30% folks aren't vaccinating? Well, what's going on? So the climate around vaccination indeed shifted significantly in recent years, especially in light of the COVID pandemic. This is the first time a healthcare issue has become political and a personal rights issue. The climate around vaccination indeed shifted significantly in recent years, especially in the light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Before the pandemic, vaccine skepticism, commonly referred to as anti-vax movement, was primarily focused on childhood vaccines, with concerns over vaccines like MMR, mumps, measles, rubella vaccine minimal. However, COVID-19 pandemic has expanded vaccine hesitancy to new levels, impacting broader public health effort. Key changes in the vaccination climate, increased vaccine hesitancy. During COVID-19 pandemic, there was widespread misinformation and disinformation about COVID-19 vaccines, which contributed to significant levels of vaccine hesitancy. Some of the people expressed concerns over the speed in which the COVID vaccine was developed and approved, while others had political, religious, or personal beliefs against vaccinations. Social media played a huge role in amplifying these concerns. Being manipulated, folks. Mistrust of institutions. A notable increase in mistrust of institutions and government institutions, pharmaceutical companies, and global bodies such as the World Health Organization was seen. So the people we go to, the nobles, the people, the scientists, we wanted to gain science. The negation of science. The negation of science and facts always happen when a community and society want to move to totalitarian rule. No way but my way. Mistrust of institutions. And the rapid development and deployment of the COVID vaccines, coupled with involving public health guidance. And I want to thank Dr. Fauci for being the face of reason and honesty and integrity in medicine. He took a hit. His family took a hit. He's had death threats, which I think is unconscionable that you would target a healthcare professional with death threats because he was doing his job. That doesn't make sense. But trying to get an abortion outside of California doesn't make sense. Yet 2 young girls died in Georgia from lack of care due to this abortion controversy. And they were in an emergency room setting. They should have been addressed in an emergency fashion, but politics got in the way. Those young women died. And no one's saying anything about it. I don't hear the Republicans saying anything about that. They're quiet, lethally quiet, because it's affecting women of color. This is who's going to hurt. It's going to hurt women of color, poor women of color that can't fly out the state, don't have, a rich uncle that can give them the money so they can go get the abortion or can travel. Political polarization. Vaccination became politically polarized issue in many countries, including the U.S., and certain political circles getting vaccinated or not became a statement of ideological alignment, which further divided public opinion. Again, how does healthcare become political? Impact of vaccination rates. COVID-19 vaccination early in the pandemic, when vaccines became available, there was a widespread uptake in many parts of the world. However, 2021 to 2022, around 30% of people in some regions, particularly in the U.S., remain unvaccinated against COVID. 30%. I've been saying that for a minute. We're going to see that. We're going to see that this winter, that 30% gets sick. And if any one of them dies, it could have been preventable. If any one of them dies, or family member who gets sick and dies, it could have been preventable. That's the sad part. Among children, the rates were often lower due to added parental concerns. So if adults, mothers and fathers, families, children die this winter, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, it would be from a preventable illness that they could have got vaccinated for early. And they'll want to sue the hospital, come in because they didn't take care of the child, and blah, 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 blah. You find the kid wasn't vaccinated, had not been vaccinated, and the families are anti-vaxxers, but they want their child given, maximum care. They got a problem with that, but will it work? In the U.S., the adult vaccination rate stalled around 65 to 70% in many areas, with booster uptake also falling short. Among children 5 to 11, early estimates show vaccination rates around 50 to 35%. I want to thank Dr. Lenore for their talk last week on vaccination safety in the community. I was not able to make it, but boy, I understand it's pretty good. The impact on routine childhood vaccinations. So 30-35% of folks aren't vaccinated. The children aren't either. What's that going to mean? We're going to find out. We're going to find out. Impact, and this is a different virus too, by the way. It's a different type of virus. Impact on routine child vaccinations. During the pandemic, routine child vaccination rates declined globally due to disruptions in the healthcare system, lockdown, and parents' hesitancy about going to medical facilities. The WHO and UNICEF reported a decline in childhood vaccinations for diseases like measles, polio, diphtheria, all treatable, all preventable. If any children die from this or get sick from this to a point of affliction, could have been preventable. In U.S., some states report a decrease in childhood vaccination rates by as much as 10% during the height of the pandemic. Consequences? Well, easy. Resurgence of preventable diseases. A drop in routine childhood vaccinations has raised concerns about outbreaks of vaccine-preventable illnesses, such as measles and polio. There have already been cases of measles and outbreaks in communities with lower vaccination rates. Long-term public health concerns. Lower vaccination rates can compromise herd immunity, making communities more vulnerable to infection disease outbreaks. This could lead to a resurgence of preventable diseases and an increase in healthcare costs. Vaccination fatigue. Some experts point to vaccination fatigue, where the constant discussions about vaccination, especially COVID-19 boosters, led to decreases in enthusiasm for following recommended vaccine schedules, both COVID and diseases. And all I can tell people is that long COVID is not fun. It's not a joke. Brain fog, fatigue, energy loss, exposure to others. Moving forward, though, efforts are being made by public health authorities like me to rebuild trust in vaccines, combat misinformation, and ensure people. That's why we're talking about this. Understand the importance of maintaining high vaccination rates for both COVID and all preventable illnesses. Programs that focus on that are making a difference. In community outreach programs, personalized communication, like we're trying to do here at Education the Best Medicine, used to address vaccine hesitancy, particularly in groups with more resistant to vaccinations. Community college, English as a second language, foreign-born. Overall, while vaccination landscape has been increased hesitancy, public health measures such as education campaigns remain critical in ensuring long-term safety of healthy population. This is just not the health of the individual. Of course, this is the health of the community we're talking about, right? Bring light to a very dark community and world. Current vaccination rates from a major respiratory illness like COVID-19, RSV, and whooping cough presented reflect mixed results influenced by factors such as vaccine hesitancy and shifting public attitude. Influenza vaccine rates are relatively stable, particularly among older adults. You see that. In 2024-2025 season, around 70-85 of flu-related deaths and hospitalizations are expected to be among adults 65 and over. And so the kid gets the adult grandparent or parent sick, and there's a loss. High-dose flu vaccines were recommended for this group, and most older adults plan to get vaccinated. Left arm, both shots got them done. I talked about it over time. I want to let folks know I did get vaccinated, and I continue to urge people to get vaccinated. COVID-19 vaccination rates for updated 19 vaccines remains low, only 26%. Again, so we got 26% not vaccinated, 30% not vaccinated. Gee, that's almost 50% of people are not vaccinated. Let's see how that plays out. That's why I'm wearing a mask inside. Farmers market, going to markets, going on closed-in spaces, have to. Only 26% of adults plan to definitely get updated COVID vaccine, and over 45% have decided against it. This reluctance stems from concerns about side effects, distrust of vaccines, and the doubts about vaccine efficacy. Okay, let's see how that works out. Because when you get sick, it's hard. Protesters vaccinations via the TAP booster are crucial, especially with the increase in cases. However, many people remain unaware of the need for a booster shot, which is typically recommended every 10 years. Yes, you need a tetanus booster, a TDAP booster every 10 years. In summary, while flu vaccination rates remain strong, COVID and RSV vaccination is more hesitancy, which concerns about vaccine safety playing a role. Whooping cough vaccines are viable, often overlooked vaccine. And just to wet your whistle, and once again, thank you to everybody for coming in, showing up, being up. We got about 10 minutes left, but I want to talk about infertility. Infertility because it's was interesting to me. I met a over the years, and no one in particular, but it just got me thinking about infertility and how much education I got on it, and even in family practice, it was referral. So infidelity is a common condition, but it has really implications of psychological, economic, demographic, and medical implications. Now, and the reason why I bring it up too, I think infertility and the examination and the workup has always been focused on women. A lot of the data shows that men need to be a part of this piece too, if they want to have children. It's just not the woman anymore. In some cases, for men, it's lack of sperm. Adequate sperm needs to be measured. So again, if you're a couple experiencing infertility, the take-home message is that both of you need to be worked up. And the American Society for Reproductive Medicine defines infertility as a disease condition or status characterized by any of the following: the inability to achieve successful pregnancy based on patient medical, sexual, and reproductive history, age, physical findings, diagnostic tests, or any combination of those factors. The need for medical intervention. The need for medical intervention, including but not limited to the use of donor gametes or donor embryos in order to achieve successful pregnancy, either as an individual or with a partner. In patients with regular unprotected, and it should be in patients with regular unprotected intercourse and without any known etiology for either partner suggestive of impaired reproductive ability, evaluation should be initiated 12 months when the female partner is under 35 or of age, and at 6 months when the female partner is 35 years older in age. And 35 is a unique age because there seems to be some issues about, a woman's only having a finite number of eggs. And so these eggs over time can change. And again, like anything else, the older a woman is at the time of the inception of pregnancy, the harder for that pregnancy is to come to term. We're seeing it now in younger women too. So I don't, in terms of, a maternal mortality and stillbirth. So it says age is a significant factor in infertility, and the age 35 is often highlighted due to several reasons. Declining ovarian reserve. And we'll talk about more of this on my next show. It'll be in a couple of weeks, but I just wanted to kind of whet your taste for the discussion around infertility. I think it's an interesting subject. Decline in ovarian reserve. So the eggs. Women are born with a finite number of eggs, and the quantity and quality of those eggs decline with age. After age 35, these declines become more pronounced, reducing the chances of conception. That's why 35 is an important age. Yeah, and women that have delayed to have pregnancies will need more help, will need more assistance, will need a fertility specialist if they've chosen to forego their uh, pregnancy early in life so that they could make a career and not have found the right person too. Right? Increasing chromosomal abnormalities. As a woman ages, the risk of chromosomal abnormality in her eggs increases. This can lead to difficulties in conceiving and higher rates of miscarriage. Higher incidence of health conditions such as uterine fibroids, endometriosis, reproductive health issues become more common with age, potentially impacting fertility. Diabetes, elevated blood sugar, um, obesity, all these things contribute to um, women's uh, decreased fertility or infertility. It is an opera panel for the men, but basically for men it's about the sperm count and about, even sometimes maybe the sperm is toxic to the woman's egg. Could be an autoimmune issue going on, or a lack of production of the man's sperm. Decreased ovarian response to stimulation. For those undergoing fertility treatment, the ovaries may respond less effectively to stimulation medicines as age increases, making treatments less effective. That's therefore IVF, in vitro fertilization. Male fertility. While declining in male fertility is generally more gradual, age can also affect sperm quality and quantity and contribute to infertility issues in couples. And if I want to say something as the show is ending, as we move on, that again, as I said before, this is just not a female issue. If I have a take home from my review of the literature, this is just not a female issue. If there's an infertility problem over a year, they need to be intimate for a year, and it's all they're saying intimate for a year at least twice in a day. Boy, that's then if that does not initiate or bring the woman to conceiving, then they have to look at it, an infertility specialist. And again, yes, there are people who do the workup, but the suggestion from the literature is that they go to a fertility specialist and be seen together. Because there's a lot of issues going when folk can't get pregnant, and it's a lot of emotional, and those specialists can take that into account, to the emotional issues in terms of anger, in terms of frustration, in terms of that kind of thing. So I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. Uh, the last thing about infertility. In the overview, 1 in 6 adults has experienced infertility at least once in their lifetime. That's the take-home message. We all need some help. I want to thank you for listening. Ms. Howell will be back next week to do the show. Again, I want to thank you guys and I thank everybody for making me who I am and making me a better person, a better provider, a better human being. Hey, vote, vote, vote.